Tonight the moon rises full and pale above a quiet village, and somewhere beyond the last field of barley, a forest begins to whisper a name it has not spoken aloud in many years. It is said that on nights like this, when silver light spills across the earth, the world grows thin enough for secrets to slip through. Tonight's story follows a simple peasant girl who hears those whispers every full moon and cannot decide whether they are a blessing or a warning. Before we begin, take a moment to like this story if you enjoy slow, atmospheric tales. Subscribe for more soothing bedtime journeys, and comment below to tell us where you're listening from. Are you winding down in the US as the evening settles in? Listening late at night, somewhere in Europe? Perhaps it's just past midnight in Canada, or early morning in another corner of the world. Let us know what time it is where you are. It's always comforting to know we're sharing this quiet moment together. Now, dim the lights, loosen your shoulders, take a slow breath in and out, let the day drift away. When you're ready, follow the moonlight with me, back to a small village at the forest's edge, where our story begins. The village of Larkspur Hollow lay curled against the forest like a sleeping animal, wary but accustomed to its presence. Low cottages with thatched roofs clustered round a narrow dirt lane, their walls stained with smoke and time. During the day, the forest was simply there, green, dense, and silent, but at night, especially under a full moon, it felt closer, as though it leaned in to listen. Ellen had lived her 16 years in the smallest cottage at the very edge of the fields. From her narrow bed, she could see the first line of trees through her single window, their branches tangled together like dark fingers, and when the wind moved through them, they sighed as one great, breathing thing. Most nights, Ellen found the sound comforting. It reminded her that the world was alive, that it moved and rested just as she did. But on full moon nights, the sound changed. Ellen rose quietly from her bed, bare feet touching the cool, packed earth floor. The moonlight spilled across the room, silvering the rough wooden table, the clay bowls stacked neatly, the small bundle of dried herbs hanging by the door. Her parents slept in the next room, their breathing slow and even, worn thin by long days in the fields. She moved to the window, resting her hands on the sill. Outside, the barley fields shimmered faintly, each stalk tipped with light. Beyond them, the forest waited. At first, there was only the wind. Then softly, almost kindly, came the whisper. It was not a word she could understand. Not quite. More like the shape of a word, carried on the air. It brushed against her ears the way a remembered song does, familiar without being clear. Ellen felt it settle in her chest, a gentle pressure, neither painful nor frightening, just insistent. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly. This had been happening for a year now, ever since the night of her 15th birthday. Every full moon, without fail, the forest spoke, and every time it spoke to her alone. The village elders said the forest was old and best left alone. Her mother said it was only the wind playing tricks on a tired mind. Ellen said nothing at all. She listened. Tonight, the whisper seemed closer than before. A shiver passed through her, not of fear, but of something like anticipation. The moon climbed higher, and the forest breathed again, its voice weaving through the trees, patient and waiting. Ellen rested her forehead against the cool glass and wondered, not for the first time, what would happen if she answered. Ellen had learned, over the passing months, that memory itself could feel like a tide pulling her backward, whether she wished it or not. As the whisper drifted through the moonlit air, her thoughts slipped gently into the past, to the very first night the forest had spoken her name. It had been warm for a full moon, the kind of late summer night when crickets sang without pause and sleep came slowly. Ellen had lain awake on her 15th birthday, listening to the soft murmur of her parents talking in low voices about the harvest and the coming winter. When their voices faded and the house grew still, she had turned toward the window, restless for no clear reason. That was when she heard it. At first, she thought it was someone walking in the fields, perhaps a neighbor returning late, or a fox moving through the grain. But the sound had no footfall. It was lighter than breath, yet it carried weight, as if the air itself had chosen to speak. Ellen. Her name had not sounded like a call. It was more like recognition. She remembered how her heart had begun to beat faster then, not in panic, but in surprise. The forest had known her name. She had pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the steady rhythm there, grounding herself. The moonlight had poured through the window, bright enough to paint the floor in silver, and the trees beyond had seemed almost gentle in its glow. She had waited for fear to come. It never did. Instead, a calm had settled over her, deep and quiet. The whisper had come again, softer this time, threading through the leaves. Not words, never words, but feeling. A sense of being watched over, not hunted. A sense of being expected. That night, Ellen had not answered aloud. She had only listened until sleep finally claimed her, the whisper fading as dawn crept closer. Now, standing at the window once more, she felt that same calm return. The memory wrapped around her like a familiar shawl. Whatever the forest wanted, it did not rush her. It waited, full moon after full moon, patient as stone and old as roots buried deep beneath the soil. Outside an owl called once, then fell silent. The whisper lingered, threading through the trees, neither louder nor softer, simply present. Ellen breathed in slowly, the scent of night air and distant earth filling her lungs. She was no longer sure if the forest had changed, or if she had. Perhaps, she thought, they were growing toward each other. The next evening, after the full moon, the village gathered, as it often did, drawn together by habit and the comfort of shared warmth. A small fire crackled in the open space near the well, its flames licking upward, as if eager to tell their own stories. Ellen sat on a low wooden stool beside her mother, hands folded in her lap, listening more than speaking. The elders' voices rose and fell in a slow, familiar rhythm. They spoke of weather signs, of a fence that needed mending, of a calf born weak but breathing. Then, as it always did when the moon had been full the night before, the talk drifted toward the forest. "Too quiet lately," old Bram muttered, poking at the fire with a stick. Sparks jumped and vanished into the dark. Forests like that don't stay quiet without reason. A few villagers nodded, others shifted uneasily. Ellen felt the warmth of the fire on her face, but a coolness settled along her spine. She kept her gaze on the flames, watching them bend and sway, pretending not to listen too closely. "The forest listens," said Marta, her voice low. "It remembers things better left forgotten." Her mother's hand tightened briefly around Ellen's wrist, a small, unconscious gesture. Ellen did not pull away. She knew her mother meant only to protect her, to keep her close to the safety of hearth and home. "Nothing good comes from wandering too near the trees after dark," Bram continued, "especially not on full moon nights." The fire popped softly, a sound like a sigh. Ellen imagined the forest beyond the fields, standing still beneath the moon, neither offended nor pleased by the warnings spoken in the village. It had heard worse, she was sure. It had heard everything. When the gathering broke apart and people drifted back to their cottages, Ellen walked home with her parents under a sky washed clean of cloud. Her father spoke gently of the next day's work, of turning soil and sharpening tools. Ordinary things, safe things. Yet as Ellen lay in bed that night, the firelight warnings echoed faintly in her thoughts. The elders feared the forest because it was old and unknown. Ellen feared something else entirely, not the forest itself, but the truth she felt slowly taking shape within her, that the whispers were not a warning, they were an invitation. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, carrying no words at all this time, and still, Ellen listened. Days passed in the gentle rhythm Ellen had always known. Morning chores, the ache of honest work, the comfort of simple meals shared at a rough wooden table. Yet beneath it all, a quiet pull grew stronger, like a thread drawn slowly taut. On the evening before the next full moon, Ellen found herself lingering at the edge of the barley fields longer than usual. The sun sank low, painting the sky in soft bands of amber and rose. The forest stood ahead, dark even in the fading light, its edge uneven and wild compared to the careful rows of crops behind her. There was a path, a little more than a thinning of grass and trampled earth. It ran between the last field and the first line of trees, used only during daylight when villagers gathered fallen branches or searched for lost livestock. Ellen had walked it many times before, always turning back before the shadows deepened. Tonight, she stopped where the path narrowed, the air cooling against her skin. She could hear the hum of insects, the distant call of a bird settling in for the night. Everything felt balanced on the edge of change, as though the world itself were holding its breath. She took one step forward, then another, feeling a strange mix of steadiness and awe. The forest did not whisper now. It did not need to. Its presence pressed gently against her senses, calm and certain. Ellen rested her hand against the rough bark of the nearest tree. It was cool beneath her palm, solid and real. For a moment, she closed her eyes and listened not for voices, but for herself. When she opened them again, she turned back toward the village. The cottages glowed faintly with lamplight, warm and familiar. She loved this place. She always would. But as she walked home, Ellen knew that the path between fields would not remain untouched for long. The forest had waited patiently. Soon, she would have to decide how far she was willing to go. That night, the moon rose nearly full, bright enough to cast shadows sharp as ink, and for the first time, the whisper returned before midnight, soft and steady, like a heartbeat calling her closer. The night of the full moon arrived, wrapped in silence so deep it seemed to hush even Ellen's thoughts. She woke before the whisper came, stirred by a feeling she could not name, a gentle pressure behind her ribs, as if something inside her had opened its eyes. Moonlight filled the cottage, turning the walls pale and the shadows long. Ellen dressed slowly, careful not to wake her parents, pulling on her worn cloak and tying it close against the night air. Her heart beat calmly, each breath measured and steady. When the whisper came, it was clearer than ever before, not louder, clearer. It moved through the trees and into the fields, brushing against her like a familiar hand. The feeling it carried was warm and patient, tinged with a quiet certainty. This time, Ellen did not stay by the window. She opened the door and stepped outside. The ground was cool beneath her feet as she crossed the yard, dew dampening the hem of her cloak. The path between the fields seemed to shine faintly, silvered by moonlight, leading her forward without urgency. Each step felt both chosen and inevitable. The forest edge greeted her with a soft stirring of leaves. No wind stirred the fields behind her now. All movement seemed to belong to the trees. Ellen paused, listening, then lifted her chin and spoke for the first time. "I hear you." Her voice was barely more than breath. The whisper answered not in words, but in feeling. Relief, deep and ancient, flowed through her like warmth from a hearth. The trees creaked softly, branches shifting, as though the forest itself was stretching after a long sleep. Ellen took another step, crossing the invisible line where field became forest. The air changed at once, cooler and richer, scented with moss and earth. Moonlight filtered through the leaves in broken patterns, painting the ground in shifting silver. She did not feel lost. She felt welcomed. Behind her, the village lay quiet and safe. Ahead, the forest opened its depths, not to swallow her, but to walk beside her. And so, beneath the full moon, Ellen began to follow the whispers at last. The forest closed around Ellen, not with a snap, but with a sigh. Leaves whispered overhead as she stepped fully beneath the canopy, the sounds of the open fields softening behind her until they felt far away, like a memory already settling into the past. The ground here was springy beneath her feet, layered with fallen leaves and pine needles that hushed each careful step. Moonlight filtered down in gentle fragments, catching on pale mushrooms at the roots of trees and glinting on spider silk, stretched like delicate thread between branches. The air felt older here, cool, steady, and unhurried. Ellen breathed it in, noticing how her shoulders slowly relaxed, how her heartbeat matched the quiet rhythm of the forest. The whisper moved again, closer now, guiding rather than calling. It drifted ahead of her, curling around trunks and slipping between roots, never rushing her pace. Ellen followed without fear, her hand occasionally brushing against bark or leaves, as if to remind herself that all of this was real. Somewhere deeper in the woods, water trickled softly over stone. An unseen creature stirred, then settled. Nothing fled from her, nothing challenged her presence. It felt as though the forest had been waiting not just for her arrival, but for her calm. Ellen paused beside an old oak whose roots rose from the earth like gentle waves frozen in time. She rested her hand against it, feeling the slow, living strength beneath the bark. A sense of knowing passed through her then, not a thought, not a voice, but a quiet understanding. She was not here to be tested. She was here to remember something that had once been forgotten. The whisper softened, drawing her onward, deeper beneath the first canopy of leaves. Ellen stepped forward again, her path unfolding one quiet moment at a time, as the moon watched patiently from above. The trees thinned gradually, their branches opening as though making room for something long awaited. Ellen felt the change before she saw ether air lightened. The ground beneath her feet grew smoother, and the whisper slowed, settling into a gentle hum that wrapped around her like a lullaby. She stepped into a clearing. Pale grass covered the open space, each blade shimmering faintly under the moonlight, as though dusted with frost. Though the night was not cold, the clearing was round and almost perfectly still, bordered by trees that stood tall and quiet, their shadows forming a natural circle. In the center lay a single stone, wide and flat, worn smooth by time. Ellen stopped at the edge of the grass, suddenly aware of her breathing again. This place felt different, not heavier, but deeper. The whisper did not urge her forward now. It waited. Slowly, she crossed the clearing, the pale grass bending easily beneath her steps. When she reached the stone, she sat, resting her hands on its cool surface. It felt familiar beneath her palms, as though she had touched it once before in a dream she could not quite recall. The forest breathed around her. Leaves rustled softly. Somewhere, a night insect sang a single, steady note. A feeling gathered within Ellen, memories that were not hers alone, impressions of other nights, other full moons, other quiet figures who had once sat here listening, just as she was now. The knowledge did not overwhelm her. It settled gently, like snowfall. Ellen closed her eyes. For a long while, there was nothing but stillness. Then, slowly, the whisper shaped itself into something clearer. Not words, but intention. A promise. A reminder that the forest and the village had once lived closer together, bound by listening rather than fear. When Ellen opened her eyes, the clearing seemed brighter, the moon higher. She felt steady, rooted, as though something within her had found its proper place at last. The whisper faded, satisfied for now. Ellen remained seated on the stone, calm and unafraid, knowing that this was only the beginning. Ellen stayed seated upon the stone as the night deepened, the clearing holding its quiet like a cupped hand. The pale grass no longer shimmered quite so brightly, yet it seemed to glow from within, as though it remembered every moon that had ever passed overhead. She rested her palms against the stone and felt a faint warmth there, subtle but steady. Beneath her, far below the soil, roots twisted and stretched, slow and patient. Their presence rose into her awareness, not as sound, but as memory. She sensed seasons turning, rain sinking deep into the earth, frost creeping gently through the ground, sunlight returning again and again, lives passing, lives beginning. The forest did not show her images. It offered feelings instead, care, endurance, waiting. Ellen understood, in the quiet way one understands a truth already known, that the whispers were not meant to pull her away from her life. They were meant to remind her of a balance that had once existed. The village took from the land, the forest gave, and once, long ago, someone had listened in return. A breeze moved through the clearing, lifting a strand of Ellen's hair from her cheek. She smiled faintly, feeling neither chosen nor burdened, only trusted. The moon drifted higher, and the circle of trees seemed to lean inward, not to trap her, but to shelter her rest. When at last Ellen rose from the stone, her legs felt strong, her thoughts clear and unhurried. The whisper did not follow her now. It remained behind, content, like a hearth banked for the night. She turned back toward the path through the trees, knowing she would return again when the moon called, but also knowing she would carry this stillness with her into the days ahead. The forest had spoken, and it had listened to Ellen. Retraced her steps through the forest slowly, unafraid of losing her way. The path seemed clearer now, as though the trees themselves remembered her passage and gently guided her between their trunks. Moonlight filtered through the leaves in soft ribbons, illuminating stones and roots just before her feet touched them. The forest felt different on the return, not quieter, but settled. The whisper had withdrawn into the deeper layers of bark and soil, leaving behind a calm that wrapped around her like a cloak. Each sound, the brush of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the faint creak of wood cooling in the night, felt carefully placed, part of a larger, breathing whole. Ellen's thoughts drifted easily. She did not try to hold on to every feeling the clearing had given her. She trusted that what mattered would remain. The rest would return when needed, like the moon itself, always finding its way back into the sky. When she reached the edge of the forest, she paused and looked back once more. The trees stood as they always had, dark and watchful, yet no longer distant. She inclined her head slightly, not in thanks, but in acknowledgement. The fields lay quiet ahead, silvered with dew. As she crossed them, the village came into views, small, familiar, safe. The lamplight in a few windows flickered low as others slept on, unaware of the quiet exchange that had just taken place beyond their fields. Ellen slipped back into her cottage without a sound, closing the door softly behind her. Inside, the air smelled of dried herbs and old wood. She undressed and lay down once more. The moonlight now shifted across the floor, its angle changed by time's steady passing. Sleep came easily, and as Ellen drifted into dreams, the forest rested too, patient and whole, waiting for the next full moon to rise. Ellen woke to the pale grey light of early morning, the kind that arrives quietly, without ceremony. For a moment, she lay still beneath her thin blanket, listening to the soft sounds of the cottage, the creak of settling wood, her mother's gentle movements in the other room, the distant call of a rooster greeting the day. Everything felt ordinary. And yet, something within her had shifted, like a stone turned over in a stream. She sat up slowly, brushing sleep from her eyes. The memory of the clearing lingered, not as sharp images, but as a deep, steady calm. It followed her as she washed her face at the basin, as she braided her hair with practiced hands, as she joined her parents at the table for a simple breakfast of bread and warm milk. Her mother watched her for a moment longer than usual. "You slept well," she said, not quite a question. Ellen nodded. "Yes," she replied, and it was the truest answer she could give. Outside, the village stirred to life. Tools were lifted, doors opened, voices greeted one another in low, familiar tones. Ellen stepped into the daylight, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet, the sun just beginning to warm her skin. The forest stood at the edge of her vision, quiet and unchanged. No whispers came in the daylight. And yet, as Ellen went about her chores, feeding the chickens, carrying water, walking the paths she had known all her life, she sensed the roots beneath the soil, the slow turning of seasons beneath every step. The world felt layered now, deeper than before. She did not speak of the night. There were no words that fitted yet. But as the sun climbed higher, Ellen knew one thing with gentle certainty. When the next full moon rose, she would listen again. Not out of fear or curiosity, but because listening had become part of who she was. And the forest, patient as ever, would remember. The days that followed passed with a gentle, almost lazy rhythm. Sunlight spilled over the barley fields, warming Ellen's skin as she worked alongside her parents. The forest, now a shadowed line at the horizon, remained quiet in daylight, but its presence pressed softly against her awareness, a constant hum beneath her every thought. Even when carrying water from the well or tying bundles of hay, Ellen felt the faint echo of the moonlit whisper. It was not a sound, not a voice, merely a pulse of expectation, a rhythm beneath the ordinary world. She would pause occasionally, letting her hands rest, closing her eyes briefly, listening for that heartbeat in the air. Villagers noticed a difference in her, not in her face, not in her speechling, still smiled at neighbors, spoke politely, and carried out her chores, but in the way she moved. Her steps had a quiet deliberateness, and her eyes often lingered on the edge of the forest, as if reading something invisible. Some whispered among themselves, calling it the full moon look, though no one dared ask what it meant. Ellen did not try to explain. She did not even fully understand it herself. She only knew that when the sun sank and the evening cooled, her attention drifted naturally toward the forest, toward the hidden paths that had felt like home beneath the last full moon. One afternoon, she paused by the stream that traced a thin silver line through the village fields. Water babbled over smooth stones, moss lining the edges in gentle green. Ellen knelt to touch the water, letting it flow over her fingertips, cool and insistent. She imagined it carrying whispers from the forest, carrying something patient, something alive, something waiting. The wind moved through the trees at the forest's edge, a faint rustle that could have been casual or purposeful. Ellen's heart stirred with recognition. The full moon had yet to rise again, and still she felt it calling her, reminding her that the forest's patience was limitless. Its time measured, not in days, but in the slow arc of seasons and stars. And so she returned home, her movements calm and steady, carrying with her a certainty that the next night the forest would speak again. Evening arrived quietly, carrying a softness that made the village glow with gentle shadows. The sky was a pale wash of lavender and rose, the kind of twilight that invites reflection and slow steps. Ellen lingered by the edge of the fields, letting the last warmth of the sun brush her cheeks as she watched the trees at the horizon. The forest remained silent at first, as if testing her patience. Yet, beneath the hush of leaves and distant birdsong, she sensed the faintest pulsar, subtle rhythm in the air that quickened ever so slightly when she drew nearer. It was not yet the full moon, not yet the clear whisper, but it was a reminder that the forest had noticed her presence, that it had remembered her from the last night. Ellen's fingers traced the coarse stalks of barley as she walked slowly along the path toward the first line of trees. The wind brushed her hair across her face, carrying a scent of damp earth and hidden moss, the forest's quiet signature. She inhaled deeply, letting it fill her chest, grounding her in the moment. A small rabbit darted across the path, pausing to regard her with dark, curious eyes before vanishing into the undergrowth. Ellen smiled faintly, noticing how even the smallest creatures seemed aware of something that lay beyond ordinary sight. The world was alive in ways most villagers would never recognize. As the first silver sliver of the moon peaked above the horizon, Ellen stopped and leaned against a tree. The bark was rough beneath her palm, yet reassuringly steady. The forest whispered again, soft, almost imperceptible, threading through the leaves like silk. Not words, not even shapes, but a presence, steady and patient, reminding her that the moon's fullness would bring the first true call of the night. She exhaled slowly, feeling the quiet anticipation settle deep into her bones. Tomorrow, she knew, the forest would speak, and she would be ready to listen once more. Night fell gently, draping the village in shadow and silver light. Stars shimmered faintly above, distant and patient, as the full moon began to rise, its pale face spilling light across the barley fields. Ellen stood at the edge of the village, her cloak drawn tightly around her shoulders, listening. The whisper returned with the moon, subtle at first, threading through the rustle of leaves and the soft sigh of wind across the fields. It was not loud, it did not need to be. It carried itself in a rhythm that matched her heartbeat, steady and calm, and it drew her forward. She moved barefoot along the path toward the forest, dew soaking the soles of her feet, grass bending gently beneath each step. Every motion felt deliberate, measured, as if she were not just walking but learning to move with the night itself. The forest opened before her, dark and welcoming. Moonlight spilled between the branches, creating broken patterns on the soft earth. The air smelled of moss, damp wood, and something older she could not name. She paused for a moment, hand brushing the trunk of a tree, and felt the slow, steady pulse of life beneath the bark. Ellen, the whisper seemed to brush her ears again, more insistent this time, carrying warmth and recognition. Her lips parted slightly. "I'm listening," she breathed, and it felt like a promise. Step by step, she followed the invisible thread through the first line of trees, deeper into the forest than she had ever dared before. The moonlight danced along the ground, illuminating stones and roots like tiny constellations. Somewhere far off, an owl called once, then fell silent, leaving only the quiet hum of life that surrounded her. She felt the pulse of the forest in every root and leaf, a slow, enduring memory that reached deep beneath the soil, and she knew, with a calm certainty, that the night had only just begun. Elin moved deeper into the trees, the forest now fully awake around her. Shadows stretched and bent beneath the moonlight, soft and fluid, like dark silk flowing over the forest floor. Every sound was magnified in the quiet, the gentle scrape of leaves underfoot, the faint rustle of branches, the distant drip of water settling from high leaves onto moss below. The whisper guided her still, not with words, but with presence, a warm, patient current that seemed to brush her mind as much as her ears. It led her to a place where the air felt heavier, richer, infused with the scent of damp earth and the faint tank of flowering herbs she could not see. Each inhalation filled her lungs with something ancient, something steady and enduring. Ahead, a cluster of great trees formed a natural archway, their roots twisting together like clasped hands. Ellen paused, feeling the subtle shift in the air as she approached. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting, and in that pause, she became aware of the slow pulse beneath her feet, life flowing through the roots, whispering of seasons past and moons risen countless times. Stepping beneath the arch, she entered a small hollow in the forest. Here, the moonlight pooled in silver circles, illuminating a floor carpeted with moss so soft it seemed to muffle sound itself. A faint shimmer of dew clung to the fronds and fallen leaves, catching the light in delicate flashes. Ellen knelt, pressing her hands to the cool moss. She felt the forest's memory here, deep and patient. Whispers of other full moons, other listening figures, brushed against her consciousness, not in words, but in feeling. The forest remembered them all, and it remembered her. For a long moment, she simply breathed, letting the pulse of the earth, the slow rhythm of the roots, and the gentle glow of the moon fill her. She was no longer a girl at the forest's edge. She was part of its quiet heartbeat, intertwined with its patient, enduring presence. And in the hush, she realized that whatever the whisper wanted from her, it was not fear, it was trust. As Ellen rose from the mossy floor, the forest seemed to shift subtly around her. Moonlight wove through the branches in slender streams, catching on dew and spider silk to form a faint silver thread that ran ahead of her, almost like a guide. She did not think to follow it, it called to her instinctively, drawing her forward without haste or worry. The air here was cooler, tinged with the scent of pine and damp leaves. Each step she took felt cushioned by the thick carpet of moss and fallen needles, the forest bending gently to her passage. Somewhere above, an unseen bird stirred, its wings brushing the quiet night before it settled again. The whisper returned, closer this time, brushing her awareness like a soft caress. It carried neither words nor urgency, only the same patient presence she had felt since the first full moon. The silver thread seemed to pulse faintly in response, as though alive, leading her toward some hidden point in the forest she could not yet see. Ellen paused by a large gnarled tree. Its trunk was wide enough that 10 people could not have encircled it. She rested her hands against the bark and felt a steady warmth emanate through her palms. The whisper passed through her mind, not as a voice, but as an impression. This is only the beginning. A faint breeze rustled the leaves overhead, carrying the scent of wildflowers she had never noticed before. It made the silver thread shimmer more brightly, leading her deeper into the heart of the forest, where shadows and light danced together in a rhythm older than memory. Step by step, she followed the subtle path, aware of every sound, every sensation, letting the forest guide her while keeping her mind calm and open. With each passing moment, the world outside the village, the fields, even her own familiar life, felt like a distant, gentle hum. Here, in the moonlit forest, she moved in perfect alignment with the quiet heartbeat of everything around her. Ellen walked with careful, unhurried steps, her senses stretched outward to touch the subtle vibrations of the forest. Here, time moved differently. Each moment seemed to linger, allowing her to notice details that daylight often swallowed. The faint glimmer of dew on a curled fern, the soft scuff of moss beneath her feet, the slow, deliberate sway of branches as though they were breathing with her. The silver thread glimmered faintly ahead, catching the moonlight in a way that suggested direction without force. It wove delicately through the undergrowth, curling around roots and rocks, leading her to places the eyes of ordinary villagers would never see. The whisper, ever patient, moved alongside her, brushing against the edges of her thoughts, urging her to notice, to feel, to remember. Ellen paused near a small pool of water hidden between two ancient trees. The surface reflected the moon perfectly, unbroken, like a glass mirror. She knelt beside it, resting her fingers against the cool, still surface. The water trembled faintly under her touch, sending ripples that shimmered like liquid silver. She sensed the forest holding itself steady, waiting. There was no fear, no demand, only a stillness that demanded attention, an invitation to quiet herself enough to hear the pulse beneath everything. In this silence, the whisper became more than sensation. It was understanding. It was memory. It was patience embodied. Ellen closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the cool night air fill her lungs. The world had narrowed to this place, this moment, this silver thread of light and sound that stretched forward like a secret bridge into the unknown. And she felt ready, calm, and wholly present, trusting the forest to guide her, knowing that the night was far from over. Ellen rose from the pool, brushing damp strands of hair from her face, and continued along the silver thread. The forest thickened again, roots weaving like a natural lattice across the ground, some rising high enough that she had to step carefully over them. Each root seemed alive in a subtle way, pulsing faintly beneath her fingertips as she ran her hands across the rough bark. The moonlight cast long, delicate shadows that danced and swayed as the branches moved above. It made the forest feel alive in layers, some motion familiar, some entirely mysterious. Ellen moved slowly, letting her eyes and instincts adjust to the interplay of light and shadow. The whisper had become a rhythm now, steady and almost tactile, urging her forward while keeping her calm. A faint rustle caught her attention, deeper among the roots. A small animal, perhaps a fox or a hedgehog, darted silently between the undergrowth, pausing for a moment as if acknowledging her passage before disappearing again. The moment felt intentional, like a quiet blessing from the hidden world within the forest. Ellen knelt briefly, pressing her palm against one of the larger roots. Beneath her hand, she felt a warmth and a slow, steady heartbeat of the forest itself. Not frightening, not demanding, only patient and enduring. She realized that the shadows among the roots were not threatening. They were part of the forest's memory, layered through countless full moons, countless nights, countless listening figures like herself. Rising again, she continued along the silver thread, feeling more grounded than ever, her steps attuned to the rhythm beneath her feet. The whisper lingered with her, soft and patient, as if reminding her that she was not simply moving through the forest, she was becoming part of its quiet, endless pulse. The forest gradually opened again, and Ellen found herself entering a small hollow nestled between towering oaks. Moonlight spilled freely here, illuminating the ground with a soft, ethereal glow. Tiny flowers, pale as starlight, had sprung among the moss, their delicate petals shimmering faintly in the silvery illumination. A gentle hush settled over the hollow, heavier than the surrounding forest, yet strangely comforting, like the pause between two heartbeats. The silver thread, still faint but perceptible, curved delicately through the space, guiding her deeper into its quiet embrace. Ellen knelt to touch one of the small flowers. Its petals were cool beneath her fingertips, yet alive with subtle energy she could not name. The whisper brushed against her awareness again, soft and deliberate, reminding her to move slowly, to observe, to breathe. Around her, the hollow seemed alive with quiet life. A moth fluttered briefly across her vision, then vanished into shadow. The leaves overhead shifted with the faintest sigh of wind. The air smelled of earth and something sweet she could not identify, a fragrance both foreign and familiar, as if the forest itself remembered a time before memory. Ellen sat on the soft moss, resting her hands on her knees, and let herself breathe deeply. She felt the rhythm of the forest pulsing through her, slow and enduring. It was a calm that went deeper than comfort. It was connection, an understanding without words, a presence older than anything in her village, older even than the moon's own light. The whisper remained patient and unwavering. Ellen closed her eyes and listened, trusting the forest to reveal its secrets in time. She felt herself becoming part of this glimmering hollow, a small thread woven into the endless, silent tapestry of life that surrounded her. From the glimmering hollow, a soft, steady sound drew Ellen forward, a trickle of water, gentle and rhythmic. Following it, she discovered a narrow stream winding through the forest, its surface catching the moonlight in ripples of silver. The water gurgled softly over smooth stones, a quiet music that blended with the rustle of leaves and the whisper threading through the trees. Ellen knelt at the edge, letting her fingers graze the cool surface. Tiny waves lapped against her skin, sending a shiver up her arm, not of cold, but of awareness, as though the water recognized her presence. The forest seemed to lean closer here, bending its shadows and light to frame the moonlit stream like a hidden sanctuary. The whisper was stronger now, brushing the edges of her mind like a gentle hand, steady and patient. It carried no words, yet Ellen understood its meaning. Observe, feel, and remember. She traced the stream's path with her eyes, noticing how the water curved around roots and stones, shaping its journey with quiet determination. A faint glow appeared beneath the surface, where pebbles and sand caught the moonlight like scattered stars. Ellen's breath slowed as she watched, mesmerized by the subtle shimmer. She felt the forest's pulse beneath her feet, the enduring heartbeat of earth and water, intertwined in ways too deep to name. Sitting on the soft moss by the stream, Ellen dipped both hands into the water, letting it flow over her palms. The whisper pressed gently against her thoughts again, patient and guiding, reminding her that each moment in this forest was a conversation, each full moon an invitation to listen more deeply. For the first time, she understood that the forest did not merely speak, it shared its quiet knowledge, a slow, soothing rhythm that could teach patience, courage, and trust without ever using words. Ellen remained by the stream, its gentle murmur filling the quiet night like a soft lullaby. Moonlight danced across the surface, and she could see her reflection mirrored in the silver ripples. For a moment, she stared, tracing the lines of her face, the curve of her hair, the steady rhythm of her breathing. She saw herself clearly, yet somehow different, as though the forest had shifted something within her while she slept. The whisper moved again, brushing the edges of her mind, coaxing her attention beyond her reflection. Ellen followed its subtle pull, noticing how the water flowed over smooth stones, curving around roots that reached down into unseen depths. Each ripple seemed purposeful, deliberate, as if the stream itself were alive and aware. She let her fingers skim the water, feeling its coolness, the tiny tug of current against her skin. A faint shiver traveled down her spine, not of fear, but of recognition. This forest, with its roots, its stones, its moonlit streams, remembered all who had listened before. She was part of that memory now, a single, small thread woven into the patient tapestry of its life. Ellen closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting the scent of wet moss and earth fill her lungs. Somewhere, deep within the forest, a leaf drifted lazily down from a high branch, landing on the stream with a soft splash. The sound echoed faintly, a note in the endless symphony of night. For the first time, she felt the whisper not only around her, but within her. It was a calm certainty, a quiet understanding, to listen fully, to move gently, to exist in harmony with the slow, enduring rhythm of the forest. She opened her eyes and smiled faintly, leaning closer to the stream. The moonlight touched her hair, silvering it in delicate streaks. The night stretched on, unhurried, and Ellen knew that she could remain here, learning, listening, and feeling, without fear or hurry. Ellen left the stream reluctantly, rising from the soft moss and brushing the dampness from her hands. The silver thread of moonlight guided her deeper into the hollow, where shadows stretched in intricate patterns across the forest floor. The air here felt dense with memory, carrying faint impressions of countless moons that had risen and passed, and whispers of those who had walked these paths long before her. The hollow widened, forming a small natural amphitheater surrounded by towering oaks whose roots twisted like ancient guardians. Each tree seemed to hum faintly, a vibration she could feel through the soles of her feet, steady and grounding. The forest's presence here was almost tactile, a comforting weight pressing softly against her shoulders. Ellen stepped carefully among the roots, pausing to rest a hand on one of the larger ones. The bark was rough, yet warm, as if the tree had absorbed the patience and care of centuries. The whisper brushed against her again, faint but insistent, guiding her gaze toward a small indentation at the base of the tree, almost invisible, but etched naturally into the root's curve. Kneeling, she peered into it. Inside lay a cluster of smooth stones, faintly glimmering in the moonlight. Some were dark as midnight, others pale as silver. She reached out and let her fingers brush them, feeling an unusual warmth radiate from the roots beneath. It was not magic as she had imagined it from village tales, but something quieter, older, an echo of memory embedded in the forest itself. Sitting back on the moss, Ellen let the whisper fill her awareness. She sensed that the forest had shared this secret deliberately, waiting until she was ready to notice. Here, in this hollow, the forest's patience was tangible, teaching her to observe, to honor, and to trust in the slow, steady rhythms of life. The night stretched on, soft and unhurried, and Ellen remained there for a long while, listening, touching, learning the gentle cadence of a world that had always existed alongside her own. Ellen rose from the hollow's soft floor and continued along the silver thread, deeper into the forest. The trees here were taller, their trunks thick and gnarled with age. She ran her hands along the rough bark, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath her fingers, the slow, steady pulse of life that seemed to flow through each root and branch. The whisper brushed against her awareness again, calm and patient, guiding her gaze upward. Leaves swayed gently, though no wind stirred them, and the moonlight spilled in broken patterns across the forest floor. Each tree seemed to breathe in its own slow rhythm, and as Ellen matched her breathing to theirs, she felt a quiet harmony settle within her. A faint rustle in the branches drew her attention. A pair of glowing eyes, small, curious, watched her from above. She did not flinch. Instead, she smiled slightly, acknowledging the silent observer. It blinked once and disappeared, leaving only the faintest echo of movement. The forest seemed to exhale, a subtle shifting of air and leaf, as if sharing its breath with her. Ellen walked slowly, deliberately, letting the rhythm guide her steps. She noticed the faint scent of pine resin and wildflowers hidden among the undergrowth. Each step brought a new texture underfoot, the soft moss, the damp earth, the occasional crunch of a fallen leaf. Here, in the heart of the forest, time seemed to stretch. The moon's light painted everything in gentle silver tones, shadows dancing softly, as if to music only the night could hear. Ellen understood, without words, that the forest's patience was limitless. It waited, it taught, it remembered, and it invited her to listen deeply, to breathe slowly, and to exist fully within this quiet, enduring world. Ellen continued her slow journey through the forest, the silver thread of moonlight guiding her along winding roots and soft moss. Each step felt deliberate, measured, as if the forest itself encouraged her to move not quickly, but fully aware of every sound and sensation. The whisper returned, faint and delicate, threading through the leaves like a song without words. It carried a presence, patient and enduring, brushing against her thoughts in gentle pulses. Ellen closed her eyes for a moment, listening, letting the rhythm of the forest settle into her chest. She could hear it everywhere, in the soft creak of branches, in the distant drip of water, in the rustle of leaves stirred by the unseen motion of night creatures. A breeze stirred overhead, lifting a scattering of leaves into the air. They twirled and fell slowly, catching the moonlight in shimmering arcs. Ellen watched them dance, feeling a calm fascination. Each leaf seemed alive, part of the forest's memory, carrying stories of seasons past, of rainfall and frost, of silent nights and hidden songs. She knelt to touch one of the leaves as it settled near her feet. Its surface was cool and smooth, yet it vibrated faintly beneath her fingers, as though echoing the heartbeat of the forest. Ellen breathed slowly, aligning herself with that rhythm, feeling her own pulse merge with the subtle cadence beneath the soil and moss. Time seemed to stretch in this quiet place. Every sound, every movement, every shimmer of silver light felt magnified, as if the forest were sharing its secrets, not with words, but with the experience of presence itself. Ellen understood now that to listen fully was to feel, to move, and to breathe in harmony with the endless, patient life around her. Ellen followed the silver thread deeper into the forest, her bare feet brushing the soft moss and fallen leaves. The trees arched overhead, their branches intertwining like woven fingers, creating pockets of shadow and light that danced across the forest floor. Each step brought a faint, comforting vibration through the ground, the whisper brushing against her awareness like a steady heartbeat. Ahead, she glimpsed an opening, a hidden clearing she had never noticed before. The moonlight spilled freely here, pooling over the grass and illuminating clusters of delicate wildflowers that seemed to glow faintly in the soft silver. The air was cooler in the hollow, scented with earth, moss, and something sweet and faintly floral that defied immediate recognition. Ellen stepped carefully into the clearing, feeling the soft grass bend beneath her feet. She paused, closing her eyes, and let the forest's rhythm flow into her. Leaves rustled gently, as though exhaling, and a distant water droplet fell from a high branch into a hidden pool, its soft splash echoing through the clearing. At the center of the space lay a flat stone, worn smooth and slightly sunken into the earth. Ellen knelt before it, resting her palms on its cool surface. The whisper brushed against her thoughts, patient and steady, a gentle invitation to observe and feel rather than question. She noticed subtle signs of life everywhere, teeny mushrooms clinging to the shaded roots, a faint trail of ants crossing the stone, the shimmer of small insects catching the moonlight like scattered stars. Everything here felt alive, conscious, and part of a slow, enduring rhythm she was only beginning to understand. Ellen sank to the moss beside the stone, letting herself breathe in harmony with the forest, feeling the whisper fold around her mind like a comforting blanket. Here, in this hidden clearing, she realized the forest did not merely watch, it remembered, it taught, and it waited, patiently, for those willing to listen. Ellen sat quietly in the hidden clearing, letting the silver glow of moonlight wash over her like gentle water. The air was cool but not sharp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth, moss, and flowering herbs. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the soft hum of insects, the distant call of a night bird felt amplified in the stillness, each one a note in the forest's slow, patient song. The whisper threaded through the clearing again, subtle and deliberate, brushing against her awareness like a soft caress. She did not try to name it or force understanding. Instead, she breathed slowly, letting herself attune to the forest's rhythm. Her heartbeat aligned with the gentle pulse beneath the roots, as if she were learning a silent language older than the village itself. Ellen leaned back on the soft moss, tilting her face toward the moon. Its pale light touched her skin, silvering her hair and the edges of her cloak. She felt warmth there, not from the air or the moon itself, but from the presence that seemed to wrap around her, the quiet assurance of a forest that had existed long before her and would continue long after. A breeze moved through the clearing, lifting a few loose petals and scattering them across the moss. They floated down slowly, catching the moonlight in delicate arcs, and Ellen reached out, letting her fingers brush one before it settled. She felt a subtle vibration through her hand, as if the forest itself had acknowledged her touch. Time seemed to slow. The world outside the village, the fields, the chores and routines, felt distant and unimportant. Here, under the moon's gaze, she existed fully in the moment, attuned to the quiet intelligence of life that moved through every leaf, root, and stone. Ellen exhaled deeply, allowing herself to sink further into the stillness. The whisper lingered softly at the edge of her mind, patient and steady, a reminder that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Ellen remained seated on the moss, letting the cool stone beneath her hands ground her. The whisper, faint yet unmistakable, moved like a gentle current through the clearing. It did not speak in words, but its presence pressed softly against her awareness, steady as a heartbeat beneath the earth. She placed her palms flat on the moss and felt it pulse beneath her fingers, a subtle vibration, slow and enduring, as though the roots, stones, and soil were alive with memory. Every beat carried the weight of countless moons, the patience of centuries, and the quiet knowledge of the forest itself. Above her, leaves stirred in a hush of windless movement. Moonlight filtered through the branches, painting the clearing in silver fragments, highlighting every curve of root and blade of grass. The forest seemed to breathe around her, its exhalations subtle, almost imperceptible, yet deeply felt. Ellen closed her eyes and let herself sink into the rhythm, feeling it align with her own heartbeat. She imagined it extending outward, connecting her to the stream she had visited, to the gnarled roots she had touched, to the hidden life of the forest that stretched far beyond what her eyes could see. Each pulse reminded her that the forest's memory was patient, and that she had been noticed, welcomed, and trusted. A faint scent of pine resin and wildflowers drifted past her, mingling with the earthiness of the soil. It was a quiet, nurturing presence, a reassurance that the forest did not demand, did not test it, simply existed, waiting for her to remember and listen. Ellen opened her eyes slowly, breathing deeply, and felt an unshakable calm settle into her chest. The night stretched on, silver and slow, and she understood that the forest's pulse would continue whether she remained or returned, a constant rhythm she could always come back to. Ellen rose from the moss, brushing her hands along her cloak to remove traces of dew. The silver thread of moonlight shimmered faintly ahead, winding through the hollow like a delicate guide. She felt the whisper brushing again at the edges of her awareness, patient and steady, inviting her to move deeper into the forest's quiet heart. The path narrowed as roots twisted and rose from the earth, yet each step felt guided, as though the forest bent gently around her passage. The air smelled richer here, damp and alive, carrying faint hints of pine, moss, and a sweetness that reminded her of something long forgotten. A small flutter of wings caught her attention. A moth, delicate and pale, moved across the moonlight, its path following the silver thread briefly before disappearing into shadow. Ellen smiled softly, sensing that even the smallest creatures shared the forest's intent, to lead, to show, and to watch without judgment. The whisper grew faintly stronger, brushing against her thoughts, not as words, but as presence. She understood it this time as an invitation to notice everything, to move slowly, to trust the pulse beneath her feet, and to let the forest reveal its rhythm on its own time. Ellen allowed herself to breathe in unhurriedly, matching her steps to the gentle cadence of roots and moss. The moonlight guided her, the whisper encouraged her, and the forest exhaled softly around her. Step by step, she moved forward, patient and calm, ready to receive whatever secrets the night had chosen to share. The forest deepened as Ellen followed the silver thread, and the trees grew larger, their trunks thick with age, bark twisted in intricate patterns, gnarled and worn, each tree a silent witness to centuries of passing moons. The whisper hovered nearby, gentle and steady, guiding her through the intricate network of roots and low-hanging branches. Ellen's fingers brushed along a massive trunk, feeling its rough surface and the subtle warmth that seemed to pulse beneath. It was as if the tree remembered every footstep, every leaf that had fallen, every whisper of wind. The presence of such age, so alive yet so patient, filled her with quiet awe. Moonlight filtered through the canopy above, spilling in fractured beams that shifted with every gentle sway of branches. Shadows danced around her, not menacing but alive, weaving a tapestry of light and dark that felt both protective and intimate. A faint sound of rustling caught her attention. A squirrel, bright-eyed and nimble, paused on a thick branch to watch her before darting into the shadows. Even the smallest movements of forest life seemed purposeful here, part of the slow, enduring rhythm she was learning to follow. Ellen paused to breathe, her chest rising and falling in sync with the subtle pulse beneath her feet. The whisper brushed closer, almost tangible now, guiding her gaze upward, around, and inward. She realized the forest was not simply a place to traverse, was a living, breathing presence, and she was slowly becoming attuned to its quiet heartbeat. Step by step, she moved among the ancient oaks, calm and deliberate, feeling the weight of time and life around her, learning that to listen fully was to exist in harmony with this patient, moonlit world. Ellen stepped carefully through the ancient oaks, following the faint silver thread that shimmered across the mossy floor. The trees began to thin slightly, revealing a small glade bathed entirely in moonlight. The pale grass gleamed like spun silver, and tiny flowers, soft and luminescent, dotted the clearing as if the night itself had painted them there. The whisper seemed to pulse more distinctly here, brushing against her awareness with a warmth that spread through her chest. It did not speak, yet its intent was clear, to invite her fully into this hidden space, to let her senses drink in the quiet, luminous world surrounding her. Ellen walked slowly into the glade, each step cushioned by the thick moss. She knelt by a cluster of delicate flowers, letting her fingers hover above their petals without touching. They quivered faintly, as though responding to her presence, their soft glow reflecting on her hands in gentle arcs of silver. A faint breeze lifted the scent of the forest pine, moss, and a sweetness she could not name and stirred the leaves of nearby trees. Shadows shifted softly, weaving in harmony with the silver light, creating an ever-changing pattern that felt alive, deliberate, and patient. Ellen sat down on the soft grass, letting the hush of the glade envelope her. The whisper lingered, steady and calm, connecting her to every root, every stone, every blade of grass. In this moment, she felt both small and infinite, a single part of the forest's enduring memory, yet fully present in the quiet heartbeat of the night. The moon rose higher, its light settling gently across the glade, and Ellen realized she could remain here indefinitely, learning, breathing, and listening to the silent, patient wisdom that had waited for her all this time. Ellen remained in the silver glade, sitting cross-legged on the soft moss, letting her palms rest lightly on her knees. The forest around her hummed with quiet life, the gentle pulse of roots and soil beneath her feet, almost imperceptible, yet steady. The whisper lingered at the edge of her mind, patient and deliberate, a guiding presence that encouraged her to notice and to feel rather than to question. She let her gaze wander across the glade, taking in every detail. Tiny flowers swayed gently despite the stillness of the air, their pale petals catching the moonlight. Leaves shimmered faintly, a subtle movement in rhythm with the unseen heartbeat of the forest. The moss under her fingers was soft and springy, carrying the warmth of countless nights spent absorbing moonlight and shadow alike. Ellen closed her eyes, breathing slowly, letting the quiet of the forest seep into her bones. She sensed layers of memory embedded in the trees, in the soil, in the silvered grass, the steps of those who had come before her, the rising and setting of moons, the patient endurance of life that persisted even when unseen by human eyes. A faint rustle in the leaves drew her attention, and she opened her eyes to see a small fox pause at the edge of the glade, its eyes glimmering in the moonlight. It watched her silently, then disappeared as softly as it had arrived. Ellen felt no fear, only the sense that all life in this forest, great or small, was a part of the same enduring rhythm she was learning to honor. The whisper brushed against her awareness once more, and for the first time, Ellen understood fully. The forest did not simply exist around her, it remembered her. Every footstep, every touch, every quiet breath she had taken in its presence was now woven into its memory, joining the long, patient story of life that stretched back through countless full moons. She exhaled, a gentle, steady release, and felt herself fully at peace. A single thread in the timeless tapestry of the forest, calm and whole beneath the moon's gentle gaze. Ellen rose from the mossy floor of the glade, brushing the soft silver grass from her hands and knees. The moon hung high above, its light spilling like liquid silver through the branches, painting the forest in gentle, fractured patterns. The whisper lingered nearby, a patient, guiding presence that nudged her forward without hurry. As she stepped through the glade, a faint mist began to gather along the forest floor. It swirled around her ankles, soft and cool, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and unseen flowers. The mist shimmered under the moonlight, forming a delicate veil that seemed to separate the ordinary world from the hidden heart of the forest. Ellen reached out, letting her fingers glide through the silvery haze. It was damp, yet comforting, as if the forest itself was wrapping her in a gentle embrace. The whisper brushed at her awareness, faint but insistent, guiding her gaze ahead. She followed the silver thread, now glimmering more clearly through the mist, winding between ancient roots and moss-covered stones. Above, leaves rustled with a soft sigh, and somewhere distant, water trickled over unseen stones. Each sound felt amplified in the hush of the night, a delicate symphony that the forest played only for those who truly listened. Ellen's breath aligned with the rhythm of the trees, slow and steady, and a profound calm settled deep into her chest. The silver veil of mist parted subtly, revealing a narrow path that led deeper into the forest. Ellen stepped forward with deliberate care, trusting the whisper, the moonlight, and the pulse beneath her feet. She felt herself moving not merely through the forest, but with it, becoming one with the quiet, patient life that had waited for her all along. Ellen followed the silver thread through the mist, her steps slow and deliberate. The path twisted gently among towering trees whose roots rose like gentle ridges from the earth. Beneath her feet, she felt the subtle pulse of the forest, an almost imperceptible rhythm like the heartbeat of the soil itself. She knelt and pressed her palms to the moss-covered ground, closing her eyes. The pulse beneath her fingers was steady, enduring, carrying the memory of countless moons, countless nights, countless nights that had moved through this forest long before her. It was calm, patient, and profoundly alive. A silent rhythm that connected everything: roots, leaves, stones, water, and the creatures that called the forest home. The whisper brushed against her consciousness, faint but unmistakable. It was not a voice, but a presence, encouraging her to feel, to align herself with the pulse beneath the surface. Ellen breathed slowly, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat to that of the forest, feeling a deep sense of belonging wash through her. Moonlight spilled through the canopy in gentle beams, illuminating patterns in the moss and leaves that seemed to shift with her awareness. Tiny insects glimmered faintly as they moved, carrying the light like scattered stars across the earth. She noticed every detail: the scent of damp earth, the faint warmth of the soil beneath her hands, the subtle rustle of leaves above. Ellen rose slowly, carrying the pulse of the forest within her. Step by step, she moved forward, feeling herself becoming part of the quiet, enduring rhythm that had existed long before her and would continue long after. The forest's heartbeat was patient, unwavering, and she knew, with gentle certainty, that she had been welcomed into its memory. Ellen continued along the silver thread, moving through the mist that clung softly to the forest floor. The moon hung high above, spilling its pale light through the canopy and scattering delicate patterns across moss and stone. Each step felt guided, deliberate, as if the forest itself gently aligned her path. Ahead, the sound of water reached her ears, a soft, trickling melody that drew her closer. Following the sound, she found a small pool, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the moon like a silver mirror. She knelt at the edge, leaning forward to trace the reflection with her fingertips. The water rippled faintly beneath her touch, distorting the moonlight into gentle waves of silver. The whisper brushed her awareness, soft and patient. It carried no words, only presence, urging her to observe, to feel, and to become still. Ellen closed her eyes and breathed deeply, allowing the cool night air to fill her lungs. In that moment, she felt the pulse of the forest beneath the soil, the rhythm of the water flowing, and the slow, enduring breath of the trees above. A faint breeze lifted the surface of the pool, creating tiny, shimmering patterns that danced across the moon's reflection. Ellen watched in quiet fascination, noticing how the forest seemed to weave light, shadow, and water into a single, harmonious rhythm. Every ripple, every glimmer, every rustle of leaves was part of a subtle conversation she was beginning to understand. She rested her hands lightly on the moss beside the pool, feeling the cool dampness and the steady pulse beneath her fingers. The forest, patient and enduring, had revealed another of its secrets. Here, in the reflection of moon and water, Ellen felt the calm certainty of connection, knowing that she was a part of this quiet, timeless rhythm, just as the forest was a part of her. Ellen rose from the edge of the moonlit pool and continued along the silver thread, her steps cushioned by moss and fallen leaves. The forest seemed to shift subtly around her, the shadows stretching and bending like soft silk in the gentle moonlight. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant drip of water, the faint movement of unseen creatures blended into a quiet symphony, each note measured and deliberate. She paused to press her palms against the rough bark of a towering oak. Beneath her fingers, she felt a faint warmth, a subtle pulse that radiated from the roots deep into the soil. The whisper brushed her awareness, patient and calm, guiding her attention to the life that moved unseen beneath the surface. The forest breathed there, slowly and deliberately, carrying the memory of countless full moons and patient nights. A gentle breeze lifted the mist at her feet, swirling around her ankles and bringing the faint scent of pine resin and damp earth. Ellen inhaled deeply, letting the cool air fill her lungs and align her heartbeat with the subtle rhythm beneath her. She felt the roots, the soil, the stones, and even the water she had touched earlier, all moving together in a quiet, enduring pulse. She walked slowly, deliberately, allowing each step to connect her more fully to the forest. The whisper lingered nearby, not demanding, not instructing, simply present, a reminder of the patient life that existed in every branch, leaf, and stone. Ellen felt a profound calm settle into her chest. The forest did not hurry. The forest did not worry. It simply existed, breathing, remembering, waiting, and she, at this moment, was entirely a part of its hidden breath. Ellen walked onward, guided by the silver thread that shimmered faintly through the moss and roots. The forest thickened above her, the canopy forming a delicate lattice of branches and leaves, painted silver by the moonlight. Shadows danced slowly, swaying in harmony with the gentle stir of night air, creating a rhythm that seemed both endless and intimate. She lifted her gaze, tracing the intricate patterns of the leaves and the spaces between them where the moon poured through. Light and shadow intertwined, forming shapes that seemed alive, yet calm, as if the forest itself were breathing over her. The whisper brushed at her awareness again, faint but insistent, a guiding presence reminding her to move slowly, to notice, and to become part of the quiet rhythm. Ellen ran her fingers along a low-hanging branch, feeling its slight give, the roughness of bark, and the faint vibration beneath her touch. Somewhere above, a bird shifted silently, its wings brushing leaves in almost imperceptible arcs. Every movement, every sound, every breath of air felt intentional, part of the forest's quiet symphony. Step by step, she moved beneath the moonlit canopy, allowing her senses to drink in every detail. The silver light illuminated small clusters of mushrooms, delicate flowers, and patches of moss, each one pulsating subtly with life she could feel beneath her palms. The forest's heartbeat was steady, slow, and enduring, threading through the soil, the roots, and the very air around her. Ellen exhaled softly, feeling the calm spread through her chest and limbs. Here, beneath the moonlit canopy, she understood more fully. The forest did not demand attention, it offered it. The whisper was patient and watchful, an invitation to remain, to move, and to breathe in harmony with the quiet, living world around her. Ellen followed the silver thread as it wound deeper into the forest, the moonlight pooling in gentle streams across the Moscovite ground. The path curved around ancient roots and small, hidden hollows, leading her through a landscape that felt at once familiar and impossibly vast. Each step pressed lightly on the soft earth, cushioned by moss, fallen leaves, and the gentle hum of life beneath her feet. The whisper lingered near her thoughts, patient and calm, urging her to move deliberately, to notice the subtle changes in air, light, and shadow. She felt the pulse of the forest beneath the soil, a slow, steady rhythm that mirrored her own heartbeat, connecting her to everything around her: the trees, the stones, the small creatures hidden among roots and leaves. A faint rustle of wings caught her attention, and she looked up to see a pale owl gliding silently between the branches, its eyes glimmering like liquid silver. It paused for a moment to regard her, then continued on, leaving only a sense of quiet companionship in its wake. Even the smallest movements of forest life seemed purposeful, part of the rhythm she was learning to follow. Ellen paused at a small incline where moonlight fell in fractured beams. She knelt, brushing her fingers across the moss, feeling the gentle pulse of life beneath. The whisper brushed again, encouraging her to breathe slowly, to attune herself fully to the quiet symphony of the night. Rising again, she stepped lightly along the path of silver, trusting the thread to lead her deeper into the heart of the forest. Each step, each breath, each moment of stillness drew her further into the enduring rhythm of the trees, the soil, and the moonlit night. Here, in this living, breathing world, she felt a calm certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The forest around Ellen seemed to hold its breath as she continued along the silver path. Moonlight filtered through the branches in delicate streams, casting intricate patterns on the moss and fallen leaves. Each movement of the forest, each subtle rustle of leaf or shifting shadow, felt heightened in the stillness, as though the night itself were observing her passage. Ellen paused to touch a cluster of small mushrooms that glimmered faintly under the moonlight. Their caps were smooth and cool, yet she felt a gentle vibration, almost imperceptible, beneath her fingertips. It was the same slow, enduring pulse that had guided her through the forest, reminding her that life here was patient, watchful, and ever-present. The whisper brushed at her awareness again, soft and deliberate, guiding her gaze toward a deeper part of the clearing ahead. There, the mist thickened slightly, swirling like a silver haze that shimmered against the moonlight. Through it, she could glimpse shapes of ancient roots and stones, their forms softened but alive with subtle energy. A faint scent of pine and wildflowers drifted on the night air, mingling with the coolness of the moss. Ellen inhaled slowly, letting the aroma fill her lungs, grounding her in the present moment. Every sound, every glimmer of light, every pulse beneath her hands and feet seemed connected, forming a delicate web of life and memory that the forest shared quietly with her. Stepping carefully through the mist, Ellen felt herself becoming part of the forest's rhythm. Her breathing, her heartbeat, and her awareness blending with the slow, enduring pulse beneath the soil. The night stretched on, calm and unhurried, and she understood more clearly that the forest had chosen to reveal its secrets only to those who listened fully, with patience and care. Ellen moved slowly through the mist, following the silver thread as it wound beneath the towering trees. The moonlight illuminated twisted roots that rose from the ground like ancient arches. Some were thick and gnarled, others slender and delicate, yet all seemed alive, faintly pulsing with the same slow rhythm she had felt beneath her hands. She knelt beside one of the larger roots, placing her palm flat against its rough surface. A warmth radiated upward, subtle but unmistakable, as though the root itself carried memory and life through its veins. The whisper brushed gently at her awareness, calm and patient, reminding her to move slowly, to breathe, and to notice the quiet language of the forest. The mist swirled around her ankles, cool and soft, carrying the scent of damp earth and hidden flowers. Moonlight glimmered along the roots, highlighting their contours, giving them the appearance of delicate silver veins pulsing through the forest floor. Ellen traced the patterns with her fingertips, marveling at the subtle energy that flowed beneath her touch. A small rustle drew her eyes upward, and she saw a tiny creature, hedgehog, moving cautiously along one of the roots, pausing to sniff the air before continuing its path. Even the smallest life here seemed aware, alive with intention, and part of the same enduring rhythm that enveloped her. Ellen pressed her hands to the root once more, closing her eyes and breathing in unhurriedly. She felt the heartbeat beneath the soil, the whisper threading through her mind, and the calm certainty of belonging settled deep within her chest. Here, among the glowing roots and silvered mist, she understood that the forest was not merely a place, it was a living, breathing memory, patient and enduring, inviting her to become part of its quiet rhythm. Ellen continued along the silver thread, her steps soft and deliberate as the forest deepened around her. The trees formed towering arches overhead, their branches intertwined like the hands of ancient guardians. Moonlight poured through the spaces between, casting gentle beams across mossy roots and scattered leaves, illuminating the forest with a calm, silver glow. She paused beneath one of the archways, letting her hands brush along the textured bark. The subtle warmth beneath her fingertips pulsed in quiet rhythm, the same slow heartbeat she had felt in the roots, stones, and soil. The whisper lingered nearby, patient and guiding, urging her to move with attention, to observe every detail, and to breathe in harmony with the forest's quiet life. A faint rustle caught her attention. A fox emerged briefly from the shadows, its coat silvered in the moonlight, and paused to watch her. Its gaze was calm and curious, unafraid. Then it disappeared silently, leaving behind only the gentle whisper of movement through leaves. Ellen smiled softly, sensing the forest's presence in even the smallest creatures. The silver thread wound ahead beneath another archway, inviting her forward. The air here was cooler, carrying the subtle fragrance of pine, earth, and distant blossoms. Ellen inhaled slowly, feeling the rhythm of the forest pulse beneath her feet and through her chest. Steady and unhurried, step by step, she moved beneath the moonlit archway, the forest wrapping around her in quiet, enduring embrace. Shadows and light danced together in harmony. The whisper brushed gently against her mind, and Ellen felt the profound calm of being fully present in this living, breathing world. Ellen stepped forward beneath the moonlit archway, following the silver thread as it wound through the forest. The moss underfoot was soft and cool, cushioning each step as the moonlight filtered through the dense canopy above. Shadows and light danced together, forming delicate patterns that shifted slowly, almost imperceptibly, with the sway of leaves and branches. She paused to press her hand against a nearby root, feeling its subtle pulse beneath her palm. The whisper brushed her awareness again, patient and calm, encouraging her to move deliberately, to notice the rhythm of the forest, and to let herself become part of its quiet, enduring life. The path ahead widened into a gentle slope, and the silver thread shimmered faintly across the ground like a river of light. Tiny flowers, glowing softly in pale luminescence, dotted the edges of the path, their petals trembling gently in a breeze too faint to feel. Ellen knelt briefly, letting her fingers brush one of the petals. A delicate warmth flowed from the flower into her hand, a quiet acknowledgement from the forest itself. Above, the moonlight gleamed on the leaves, casting silver patterns across the path. Each step forward felt aligned with the pulse beneath her feet, slow, measured, and patient. The whisper, faint but persistent, guided her forward, inviting her to notice every detail: the soft moss, the gentle rustle of leaves, the delicate shimmer of the moon on flowers and roots alike. Ellen breathed deeply, feeling the calm settle into her chest. The forest, patient and enduring, had revealed this silver path to her, a quiet corridor of light and memory. She stepped forward, fully attuned to the rhythm of life around her, trusting the whisper, the thread, and the moonlight to guide her deeper into the heart of the forest. Ellen continued along the silver-glimmering path, moving slowly and deliberately, her senses fully open to the forest around her. The air was still, carrying only the faintest stirrings of leaves and the delicate hum of unseen insects. Above, the canopy of intertwined branches and leaves shimmered in silver moonlight, forming a gentle roof that filtered the light into soft, moving patterns. She paused beneath one particularly grand oak, its trunk thick and ancient. Placing her hand against the bark, she felt the slow, enduring pulse of the tree beneath her fingertips. The whisper brushed her mind again, calm and deliberate, encouraging her to breathe deeply, to attune herself fully to the rhythm of the forest, and to let the quiet life around her become a part of her own. A faint rustle drew her gaze upward. A small family of owls perched in the branches, their feathers catching the moonlight. They regarded her briefly with luminous eyes before resettling quietly, wings folding in perfect stillness. Ellen smiled softly. Here, even the smallest life was part of the patient rhythm she was learning to follow. The silver thread wound ahead through the roots and soft moss, glimmering faintly beneath her steps. Each movement felt purposeful, yet unhurried. Ellen let herself be guided by the subtle pulse beneath the earth and the steady whisper, moving deeper into the quiet, living heart of the forest. Step by step, she walked beneath the whispering canopy, aware of the soft sigh of leaves, the gentle light, and the calm certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The forest breathed around her, patient, enduring, and entirely alive. Ellen followed the silver thread as it wound gently downward, leading her into a shallow hollow where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver. The forest here was quieter, the shadows deeper yet softened by the pale illumination. Every step she took felt cushioned by the thick moss and fallen leaves beneath her feet, as if the earth itself welcomed her presence. She knelt briefly beside a cluster of small stones, each smooth and cool to the touch, glimmering faintly in the moonlight. The whisper brushed her awareness, patient and calm, drawing her attention to the subtle life surrounding her. Tiny insects moved slowly among the stones, and a faint rustle in the roots above suggested creatures unseen, all participating in the forest's quiet rhythm. Ellen breathed deeply, feeling the pulse beneath her palms, the enduring heartbeat of the forest woven through soil, roots, and stone. The air carried a delicate scent of pine and damp earth, mingled with the sweetness of hidden blossoms. Each inhalation and exhalation aligned her more fully with the forest's calm cadence. Above her, the moonlight illuminated the gentle sway of branches, casting soft, shifting patterns on the hollow's floor. Shadows and light danced together, alive yet serene, as the whisper threaded softly through her mind. Ellen felt herself entirely present, attuned to the forest's enduring life, and embraced by its patient rhythm. She rose slowly, brushing moss from her knees, and stepped forward along the silver thread. The hollow seemed to guide her gently, each curve and rise of the path moving her deeper into the quiet, living heart of the forest. She understood that she was not merely walking, she was listening, breathing, and becoming part of the forest's patient memory. Ellen moved forward from the moonlit hollow, following the silver thread as it wound between towering oaks and moss-covered roots. A soft mist began to rise along the forest floor, curling gently around her ankles and shimmering faintly in the pale moonlight. The air felt cooler here, carrying the scent of wet earth and delicate flowers hidden among the undergrowth. She knelt to touch the mist, letting it swirl through her fingers like liquid silver. The whisper brushed her mind again, patient and calm, encouraging her to move slowly, to notice every detail, and to attune herself fully to the quiet rhythm of the forest. Beneath her fingertips, the moss and roots pulsed gently, a subtle heartbeat connecting her to the enduring life around her. Above, the branches swayed faintly, though no wind stirred them. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, painting the mist in shifting patterns of light and shadow. Tiny glimmers of moisture clung to leaves and petals, catching the silver light like scattered stars. Ellen exhaled slowly, allowing herself to absorb the quiet symphony of sights, sounds, and scents surrounding her. A faint rustle in the underbrush caught her attention. A small fox emerged briefly, pausing to regard her with luminous eyes before slipping silently into shadow. Even the smallest life here moved with purpose and patience, aligned with the slow, enduring pulse of the forest she was learning to follow. Step by step, she moved along the silver mist, feeling the forest's rhythm beneath her feet, the whisper brushing gently at her awareness, and the moonlight illuminating her path. She felt wholly present, embraced by the quiet life of the night, and certain that the forest had chosen to share its secrets with her in this patient, luminous hour. Ellen continued along the silver thread, the mist curling gently around her feet, soft and cool against her skin. The moonlight shimmered across the mossy ground, casting silver patterns on roots and rocks, guiding her path deeper into the forest. Each step felt deliberate, aligned with the pulse she could feel beneath the soil. Slow and steady as the whisper brushed her awareness. Ahead, she noticed a large stone partially sunk into the earth, its surface worn smooth by time. A shallow hollow had formed at its center, catching the pale moonlight like a small basin of silver. Ellen knelt beside it, resting her palms on the cool surface. Beneath her touch, she felt the faint heartbeat of the earth, the enduring pulse of life flowing beneath the stone, subtle yet undeniable. The whisper moved gently at the edges of her mind, patient and deliberate. It encouraged her to observe, to breathe, and to be present, guiding her attention to the delicate details of the stone and its surroundings. Tiny flowers and moss had taken root in the cracks, their soft green and pale luminescence forming a quiet tapestry of life and memory. Ellen breathed deeply, inhaling the scent of damp earth, moss, and the faint sweetness of hidden blooms. She let her fingers trace the stone's edges, feeling its cool strength and patient endurance. The forest's rhythm pulsed beneath her palms, through the roots around her, and into her chest, connecting her fully to the living world surrounding her. Rising slowly, she followed the silver thread as it continued past the hollowed stone. Each step carried her deeper into the forest's quiet heart, the mist swirling gently, the moonlight shimmering, and the whisper guiding her onward, patient and constant. She felt herself becoming one with the enduring rhythm of the night, fully immersed in the forest's patient memory. Ellen stepped lightly along the silver thread, leaving the hollowed stone behind. The mist drifted gently around her ankles, carrying the faint scent of pine, moss, and blossoms hidden deeper within the forest. The moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting shifting patterns across the forest floor, illuminating tiny details she had learned to notice: the curve of a root, the glimmer of dew on a leaf, the delicate glow of a flower petal. Ahead, the forest opened into a small grove bathed entirely in silver light. The trees here were tall and slender, their trunks smooth, with branches arching overhead like a natural cathedral. The moon's glow pooled on the grass, turning it into a soft carpet of pale luminescence. Tiny flowers dotted the grove, their faint radiance echoing the thread of silver light that had guided her here. Ellen knelt on the soft moss, letting her palms rest on the earth. Beneath her fingers, she felt the familiar pulse, the slow, enduring heartbeat of the forest, flowing through roots, soil, and stone. The whisper brushed her mind again, calm and patient, inviting her to breathe, observe, and attune herself fully to the rhythm around her. A gentle breeze stirred the grove, lifting petals and leaves in delicate spirals. They twirled and danced in the moonlight, their motions slow and mesmerizing. Ellen watched in quiet fascination, feeling the connection between every living thing in the grove: the trees, the moss, the flowers, the small creatures moving unseen, and herself. Rising slowly, she continued along the silver thread, each step guided by the forest's enduring pulse. The glimmering grove seemed to watch her pass, its quiet energy embracing her in a sense of calm certainty. Here, She realized fully that she was not merely moving through the forest, she was moving with it, part of the patient eternal rhythm that had existed long before her and would continue long after. Ellen continued along the silver thread, leaving the glimmering grove behind, her steps slow and deliberate. The moonlight spilled through the trees, creating delicate silver patterns on the moss and leaves beneath her feet. Each step seemed to echo softly in the quiet night, blending seamlessly with the gentle murmurs of the forest. She paused to listen. The whisper brushed her awareness, subtle yet persistent, guiding her to notice the faint sounds around her. The soft trickle of water from a hidden stream, the rustle of leaves as a small creature passed unseen, the quiet creak of an old branch swaying in the moonlight. The forest spoke not in words, but in these small, deliberate movements, and Ellen felt her heartbeat align with its rhythm. The air carried a faint scent of pine, damp earth, and distant blossoms. Ellen knelt to touch the soft moss, feeling its gentle springiness beneath her fingers, the pulse of life coursing faintly through the earth. Tiny insects glimmered in the moonlight, moving slowly and deliberately, part of the forest's enduring, patient rhythm. She rose, inhaling deeply, and allowed the soft murmur of the forest to guide her steps. The silver thread wound ahead through roots and low branches, leading her deeper into the night's calm embrace. Every sound, every shimmer of moonlight, every pulse beneath her palms reminded her that she was part of this quiet, living world, attuned to its enduring memory and embraced by its gentle, patient heartbeat. Ellen followed the silver thread as it curved gently through the forest, the mist clinging softly to her feet and the moonlight illuminating the mossy path ahead. The whisper brushed her awareness, calm and patient, guiding her forward, deeper into the quiet heart of the night. Soon, the sound of flowing water reached her ears, a soft, melodic trickle that beckoned her closer. She found a narrow stream winding through the forest, its surface reflecting the moonlight in rippling patterns of silver. The water flowed smoothly over rounded stones, creating a gentle murmur that mingled with the whisper of leaves and the pulse of the earth beneath her. Ellen knelt at the edge of the stream, letting her fingers skim the cool water. Tiny ripples spread outward, catching the moonlight and scattering it across her palms in delicate arcs. She felt the subtle pulse of life in the water, as if the stream carried the forest's heartbeat along its current. The whisper lingered nearby, steady and comforting, urging her to breathe deeply and to fully attune herself to the rhythm around her. The scent of wet moss and distant blossoms drifted on the night air, mingling with the faint earthy aroma of the flowing water. Ellen closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the layered symphony of the stream, the roots, the leaves, and the quiet creatures moving unseen around her. Each sound was deliberate, measured, part of the patient cadence of the forest. Rising slowly, she followed the stream's silver reflection, her steps careful and deliberate. The forest's pulse moved beneath her feet, the whisper brushed gently at her awareness, and the moonlight guided her onward. Step by step, Ellen felt herself merging with the quiet rhythm of the night, a single thread woven into the enduring memory of the forest. Ellen followed the moonlit stream, the silver thread guiding her along its winding path. The mist rose softly around her feet, curling in delicate spirals that caught the pale light. The whisper lingered nearby, patient and gentle, brushing at her awareness and inviting her to move slowly, to breathe fully, and to notice the quiet details of the forest around her. Ahead, the stream opened into a small grove bathed entirely in silver light. The trees here were tall and slender, their branches arching gracefully overhead, forming a natural dome that shimmered in the moonlight. The grass beneath her feet glowed faintly, and tiny flowers dotted the grove. their petals radiating a soft luminescence that echoed the silver thread leading her here. Ellen knelt on the cool, damp moss, letting her palms rest lightly against the earth. Beneath her fingers, she felt the steady pulse of life, the quiet heartbeat of the forest flowing through roots, soil, and stone. The whisper brushed at her mind again, calm and deliberate, encouraging her to breathe slowly, to attune herself fully, and to absorb the subtle magic of this hidden place. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, lifting petals into gentle spirals that floated through the moonlight. Ellen watched them dance, mesmerized by the slow, harmonious rhythm that connected every living thing in the grove, from the tallest tree to the smallest insect moving unseen among the roots. Rising slowly, she continued along the silver thread, her steps aligned with the patient pulse of the forest. The luminous grove seemed to watch her pass, its quiet energy embracing her as she moved deeper into the night. Here, she understood fully that she was part of the forest's enduring memory, woven into its gentle, silvered rhythm. Ellen left the luminous grove behind, the silver thread winding gently upward along a soft incline. The moss beneath her feet cushioned each step, and the mist swirled lightly around her ankles, cool and delicate. Moonlight filtered through the branches above, casting fractured silver patterns that shifted slowly with the gentle sway of leaves. She paused to touch a gnarled root, feeling its rough texture and the faint pulse beneath her fingers. The whisper brushed her awareness again, patient and steady, guiding her to move deliberately, to notice every subtle movement, and to let herself become fully present in the rhythm of the forest. The incline led her to a small rise where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver, illuminating tiny flowers and delicate ferns. Their petals shimmered softly, and Ellen knelt to brush her fingers across the moss and the glimmering greenery. She felt the steady heartbeat of the forest beneath her palms, a slow, enduring pulse that connected roots, soil, and every living thing around her. A soft rustle in the underbrush drew her gaze, and she glimpsed a small deer stepping lightly among the trees. Its eyes glimmered in the moonlight as it paused to regard her, then continued silently on its path. Even the smallest forest creatures moved in harmony with the quiet, patient rhythm she was learning to follow. Ellen rose slowly, inhaling deeply the scent of pine, moss, and distant blossoms. Step by step, she ascended the gentle rise, feeling the forest's pulse beneath her feet and the whisper brushing softly at her mind. She moved in alignment with the moonlight, the mist, and the patient life around her, fully immersed in the calm, enduring rhythm of the night. Ellen reached the top of the gentle rise, where the silver thread led her to a secluded alcove nestled between two ancient oaks. The moonlight spilled across the mossy ground, turning it into a soft, luminous carpet. The mist drifted gently, curling around her feet and lifting the faint scent of earth, pine, and hidden blooms into the air. She knelt on the soft moss, letting her palms rest lightly on the ground. Beneath her fingers, she felt the enduring pulse of the forest, the slow, patient heartbeat of roots, soil, and stone. The whisper brushed her awareness again, calm and deliberate, guiding her to breathe deeply, to observe every subtle movement, and to attune herself fully to the quiet rhythm around her. Tiny flowers and ferns swayed slightly in the gentle breeze, their delicate petals catching the moonlight. A small squirrel paused on a root nearby, its eyes shining softly in the silver glow, before darting silently into the shadows. Even the smallest creatures here moved in harmony with the patient pulse of the forest. Ellen closed her eyes, feeling the rhythm of life around her. The moonlight, the mist, the whisper, and the enduring heartbeat beneath her palms all wove together, creating a quiet, soothing harmony that filled her chest with calm. She realized she could remain here indefinitely, listening and breathing, fully immersed in the patient memory of the forest. Rising slowly, she continued along the silver thread, each step deliberate, her senses attuned to every shimmer of moonlight and every subtle rustle of life. The forest embraced her in its quiet, enduring rhythm, and she knew she was part of its timeless memory. Ellen followed the silver thread as it wound gently through the trees, the moss beneath her feet soft and yielding. The moonlight poured through the branches, casting delicate, shifting patterns on the forest floor. Shadows moved slowly in harmony with the gentle sway of leaves, creating a calm, rhythmic dance that seemed to mirror the pulse she felt beneath her palms. She paused to touch a broadleaf, letting her fingers trace its veins. Beneath her touch, she felt the faint warmth and slow vibration of life, the enduring pulse of the forest flowing through every root, stone, and blade of grass. The whisper brushed gently at her awareness, calm and patient, guiding her to breathe slowly and let herself fully merge with the rhythm surrounding her. A soft breeze carried the scents of pine, moss, and faintly blooming flowers, mingling with the cool night air. Ellen inhaled deeply, feeling the calm settle into her chest. Tiny motes of mist danced in the moonlight, swirling in delicate arcs around her feet, each one a small reflection of the patient energy of the forest. Step by step, she followed the silver thread, each movement aligned with the heartbeat beneath her feet and the gentle guidance of the whisper. The forest seemed to fold around her, protective and nurturing, its life slow, deliberate, and enduring. Here, in the moon's soft embrace, Ellen felt fully present, a single thread woven into the quiet, patient memory of the night. Ellen's steps carried her along the silver thread, deeper into the forest, where the moss thickened and the moonlight fell in softer, fragmented beams. The whisper brushed her awareness again, patient and calm, guiding her to move deliberately, to notice every detail, and to attune herself fully to the quiet rhythm of the night. Soon, she heard the faint murmur of water, a gentle babble that beckoned her closer. Following the sound, she discovered a narrow brook winding through the trees, its surface shimmering like liquid silver under the moonlight. Smooth stones lined the edges, and tiny ferns and moss clung to their sides, glowing faintly in the soft light. Ellen knelt beside the brook, letting her fingertips skim the cool water. Tiny ripples spread outward, catching the moonlight and scattering delicate arcs across her hands. Beneath her palms, she felt the subtle pulse of life moving through the earth, through the stream, and through her own body. The whisper lingered, calm and insistent, encouraging her to breathe slowly, to notice the gentle symphony of water, leaves, and hidden creatures moving around her. The air carried a soft fragrance of wet earth and blossoms from the surrounding forest. Ellen closed her eyes, listening to the layered sounds, the trickle of water, the rustle of leaves, the faint hum of insect sand, felt a profound sense of calm wash over her. Step by step, she followed the brook's silver reflection, each movement in harmony with the enduring heartbeat of the forest. Here, beside the hidden brook, she understood the patient memory of the night, that every ripple, every whisper, every pulse of life was connected, and that she herself was now an inseparable thread in this quiet, living tapestry. Ellen continued along the silver-lit brook, the mist curling softly around her ankles and drifting in delicate swirls through the moonlight. The forest seemed quieter here, as though holding its breath, yet alive with subtle movement, leaves trembling faintly, roots pulsing beneath the soil, and the whisper brushing gently at her awareness. She knelt to touch the moss at the edge of the brook, feeling its softness and the steady, patient pulse of life beneath her fingertips. The water rippled in response to her touch, reflecting the moonlight in gentle arcs of silver. Each ripple carried the quiet memory of the forest, the enduring rhythm of life that had persisted through countless moons. A faint scent of pine resin and wet earth mingled with the delicate fragrance of hidden flowers. Ellen inhaled slowly, letting the aroma fill her lungs and align her heartbeat with the pulse beneath her hands. The whisper lingered, steady and calm, guiding her to move with intention and to absorb the quiet beauty of this hidden world. Rising slowly, she followed the silver thread as it curved along the brook, the mist lifting and swirling with each step. Shadows shifted gently with the moonlight, painting the forest in luminous patterns. Ellen felt the forest's rhythm in every step, in every breath, and in every brush of the mist against her skin. Here, she was fully present, embraced by the enduring, patient heartbeat of the night. Ellen followed the silver thread as it led her away from the hidden brook and into a small clearing bathed entirely in moonlight. The grass beneath her feet glimmered faintly, soft and springy, dotted with tiny flowers that radiated a gentle luminescence. Mists swirled lazily around her ankles, carrying the subtle scent of pine, earth, and distant blossoms. She knelt on the soft grass, letting her palms brush the moss and the glowing flowers. Beneath her fingers, she felt the slow, steady pulse of life, the heartbeat of the forest flowing through roots, soil, and stone. The whisper brushed her awareness gently, patient and calm, guiding her to breathe deeply, to notice every detail, and to attune herself fully to the quiet rhythm surrounding her. Above, the trees arched gracefully, their branches swaying faintly in a breeze so soft it barely stirred the leaves. Moonlight poured through the canopy, illuminating the delicate flowers and casting silver patterns across the ground. Ellen inhaled slowly, feeling the calm settle deep into her chest, and exhaled with a sense of quiet wonder. A small deer stepped cautiously into the clearing, its coat pale under the moonlight. It paused to watch her, eyes wide and luminous, before moving silently into the shadows. Even the smallest creatures here moved in harmony with the forest's patient rhythm, a gentle reminder of the interconnected life surrounding her. Rising slowly, Ellen continued along the silver thread, each step deliberate and measured. The clearing seemed to watch her pass, its quiet energy embracing her. She felt fully present, a single thread woven into the patient, enduring heartbeat of the forest, illuminated softly by the moon's gentle glow. Ellen moved gently through the clearing, following the silver thread as it curved beneath the trees. The moonlight painted the forest floor in shifting patterns of silver and shadow, illuminating the mossy ground, delicate flowers, and winding roots along her path. The whisper brushed at her awareness, calm and patient, guiding her to move slowly, to notice every subtle movement, and to attune herself fully to the rhythm of the night. Ahead, two ancient oaks arched together, forming a natural gateway or arch. Moonlight streamed through the opening, casting a gentle glow across the forest floor. Ellen paused beneath the arch, placing her hand on the rough bark of one tree and feeling its slow, enduring pulse. The whisper lingered softly, encouraging her to breathe deeply and absorb the calm, patient energy surrounding her. A faint breeze stirred the leaves above, lifting petals and tiny fragments of moss into delicate spirals. They danced slowly in the moonlight, shimmering like fragments of silver in the air. Ellen watched, mesmerized, feeling the rhythm of life in every movement: the trees, the earth, the mist, and even the smallest creatures moving unseen among the roots. She knelt briefly on the mossy ground, letting the forest's pulse flow through her palms. Step by step, she rose and passed through the moonlit arch, feeling herself aligned with the slow, enduring heartbeat of the forest. The whisper brushed at her mind, gentle and insistent, and she realized fully that each step she took was part of the forest's patient, timeless memory. Ellen stepped through the moonlit arch, following the silver thread as it led her into a secluded hollow. The ground here was soft with moss, and the air carried the subtle fragrance of damp earth, pine, and faintly blooming flowers. Mist swirled gently around her ankles, shimmering in the moonlight, as though the night itself were weaving a delicate veil over the forest floor. She knelt to touch the moss, feeling its softness and the steady pulse beneath her fingers, the slow, enduring heartbeat of the forest flowing through roots, soil, and stone. The whisper brushed her awareness, calm and patient, encouraging her to breathe deeply, to notice every subtle movement, and to attune herself fully to the quiet rhythm around her. Above, the trees arched gently, their branches forming a canopy that filtered the moonlight into soft, shifting patterns. Tiny flowers glimmered faintly among the moss, and small creatures moved quietly through the undergrowth, their presence blending seamlessly into the forest's patient rhythm. Ellen observed them with quiet fascination, feeling her own heartbeat align with the forest's enduring cadence. Rising slowly, she continued along the silver thread as it wound deeper into the hollow. Each step was deliberate, measured, and in harmony with the whisper that lingered near her mind. The forest embraced her fully, its calm energy flowing into her chest, and she felt the profound certainty of being part of this living, breathing memory that had endured through countless moons. Ellen followed the silver thread deeper into the hollow, where the sound of water reached her ears, a soft, gentle murmur that promised calm and quiet reflection. She found a narrow stream, its surface glimmering under the moonlight like liquid silver. Smooth stones lined its edges, and patches of moss clung to the banks, soft and cool beneath her touch. She knelt beside the stream, letting her fingers brush the water. Tiny ripples spread outward, catching the moonlight and scattering delicate arcs across her palms. Beneath her touch, she felt the subtle pulse of life moving through the water, the soil, and the roots nearby. The whisper lingered, patient and calm, inviting her to breathe slowly and to attune herself fully to the forest's rhythm. The air carried the faint fragrance of wet earth and pine, mingled with the soft scent of hidden blossoms. Ellen closed her eyes, listening to the layered symphony, the water trickling over stones, the whisper of leaves in the breeze, and the quiet hum of life moving unseen. Each sound was deliberate, measured, part of the enduring, patient cadence of the forest. Rising slowly, she followed the silver thread along the stream, stepping lightly on the mossy ground. The forest's pulse flowed steadily beneath her feet. The whisper brushed gently at her mind, and the moonlight guided her path. She felt wholly present, embraced by the quiet, enduring rhythm of the night, and fully aware that she had become part of the forest's patient, living memory. Ellen followed the silver thread along the glimmering hollow stream until it opened into a small, serene pool. The water's surface was perfectly still, reflecting the moon in flawless silver. Moonlight pooled on the surrounding moss, illuminating tiny flowers and ferns that seemed to shimmer in quiet response to the soft glow. She knelt at the edge of the pool, placing her palms gently on the cool moss. Beneath her fingers, she felt the slow, steady pulse of life, the heartbeat of the forest flowing through the roots, soil, and stones. The whisper brushed her awareness again, patient and calm, encouraging her to breathe fully, to notice every subtle detail, and to attune herself completely to the forest's enduring rhythm. A soft breeze lifted petals from the surrounding flowers, letting them float slowly across the water's surface. Each petal moved with delicate precision, tracing gentle arcs that seemed to follow the quiet pulse beneath the soil. Ellen watched in awe, feeling the harmony of life in every movement: the trees, the water, the earth, and even the smallest creatures moving unseen among the roots. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply the combined scents of pine, earth, and blossoms. Step by step, breath by breath, she aligned herself with the rhythm of the forest. The moonlight, the mist, the whisper, and the calm heartbeat beneath her fingers all intertwined, and she felt a profound sense of belonging, as if the forest itself had welcomed her fully into its patient, silvered memory. Ellen lingered beside the moonlit pool, feeling the cool moss beneath her palms and the gentle pulse of life through the soil. The whisper brushed at her awareness, calm and patient, guiding her to remain fully present and to feel the subtle rhythm connecting every element of the forest. The moonlight pooled around her, soft and silver, illuminating the delicate flowers, ferns, and moss in a quiet, magical glow. She rose slowly and followed the silver thread further into the heart of the forest. The trees here were older, taller, and more majestic, their roots intertwining beneath the soil in a hidden web of life. The mist swirled gently around her feet, carrying the soft scent of earth, pine, and distant blossoms. Every step she took felt deliberate, measured, and in harmony with the enduring heartbeat beneath the soil. A gentle rustle drew her gaze upward, where the branches swayed faintly in the breeze. The forest seemed to exhale, a slow, patient breath that filled the clearing with calm. Tiny creatures moved unseen among the roots and undergrowth, their quiet activity a subtle reminder that every life was part of the same rhythm. Ellen knelt on the soft moss, letting her palms rest lightly on the earth. She felt the pulse of the forest, the whisper, the moonlight, and the mist all converge into a profound sense of stillness and connection. Here, at the heart of the forest, she understood fully that she was not merely walking through it, she was a part of its living memory, woven into its quiet, patient rhythm. Ellen reached the very heart of the forest, where the silver thread ended in a small serene clearing bathed in the full glow of the moon. The air was still, soft with mist, carrying the subtle fragrances of pine, earth, and hidden blossoms. The trees around her formed a protective circle, their branches gently swaying in harmony with the quiet pulse of the forest beneath her feet. She knelt on the soft moss, placing her palms on the cool ground, and felt the slow, steady heartbeat of the forest flowing through roots, soil, and stone. The whisper brushed her mind one final time, calm, patient, and warm, as if offering a quiet blessing. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, letting the rhythm of the forest fill her entirely, its enduring patience, its gentle energy, its timeless memory. The moonlight poured over her, silver and soft, illuminating the delicate flowers and ferns around her. Tiny motes of mist floated lazily, catching the light and shimmering like suspended stars. Every sound, every movement, every subtle pulse of life converged into a single, soothing harmony that wrapped around her heart. Ellen felt herself entirely at peace, fully present in this sacred moment. She understood that the forest had shared its deepest secret with her, that life, even in its quietest, slowest forms, was connected, enduring, and patient. The moon above, the whisper of the night, and the pulse beneath her hands all became one, and she rested within that harmony, calm and whole. Slowly, as the moon's glow continued to bathe the clearing, she felt a gentle sense of completion. The forest had embraced her fully, and in return, she had become a part of its living memory. Thank you for journeying with Ellen through the silver-lit forest, from the first whisper to the heart of the moonlit woods. As you close your eyes and let the calm of the night surround you, remember the gentle rhythm of the forest, the slow, enduring heartbeat of life, patience, and quiet wonder. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Share the magic of this journey with others. Whether you're watching from the US, Europe, Canada, or anywhere else in the world. May your dreams tonight be as serene and luminous as the silver forest under the full moon. The forest waits, always patient, always whispering, good night.